Welcome, and thank you for downloading this week Take Aim Outdoors, the Bow Hunters Podcast. Whitetail hunting stories, tips, and gears from across country.
All right, guys, back. Brand new Take Aim podcast. Excited to be back. I know it's been a few weeks. Apologize for that. I had sprained my knee pretty bad, and it kind of has thrown me way off track with just motivation, so to speak. I've had a hard time walking, and even the rehab's going slow, and it just seems to put me in a funk, and everything's slow. But we're back, and something caught my eye this week on Facebook, and that was multiple posts circulating about the Mitch Rompola Buck. And for those of you that don't know, you can look it up. But or if you don't know how to spell it, it's Rompola. Just put that in your Google, and it will come right up. But the Rompola Buck should be known, or could be known, as the greatest typical deer of all time. Now, as I say typical, I mean typical frame. It would beat Milo Hansen's buck. This deer claimed to be taken with the archery gear, so it would also be the world's biggest archery typical of all time. So literally he would break both records of typical archery and Boone and Crockett for best typical of all time. So without a doubt, this buck has been talked about for years. Since the day November 13th, 1998 is when I first saw the picture of the Rompola Buck in the Detroit News, and it was just the biggest, widest buck I've ever seen. Just a huge, the biggest beams you've ever seen. Huge 6x6 typical. The brows are a solid 10. I got an awesome train in the background. There's never a train here, but the brows are at least 10 inches apart, could be a foot apart. It's absolutely insane what this deer looks like. But there's so many questions and so many just myths and just chaos surrounding this story. As we all know, like, multiple bucks get killed every year, and great ones, and so many that should be stuff of legends, but the Rompola Buck really has turned into not just stuff of legends, but urban legend of what has happened. And it's just insane that it still makes the rounds every year. And for whatever reason, this year just seems to be nonstop, that it's out there somewhere. So let's start with, what do we know? We know it was shot November 13th, 1998. Mitch actually took a video camera with him and walked up to the deer. Supposedly he went home, grabbed the video camera, came back, and walked up to the deer where it had fallen dead. So with that being said, there's so much craziness surrounding Mitch and this deer. And what's really crazy is a outdoor local radio show, television show at the time here in Michigan had covered Mitch about 3 years prior, and Mitch had several unbelievable good deer. They did at least a 7-8 minute segment with Mitch. He had unbelievable deer. Mitch was from Missouri. At like 9 years old, he broke the state record in Missouri, and I think he broke it since then 1 or 2 more times, supposedly. Now, this is where the craziness, urban legend stuff comes in. Everybody constantly says Mitch is such a humble guy, doesn't want to be known, notoriety, didn't want the drama of having that stuff. But what I don't understand is Mitch says, stuff like that in this interview, that he had broken the record, there in Missouri. So really bizarre. Was that on record? Did he enter it in the books? This is stuff I still don't know. But I do have somebody that is looking into that for me, actually, that does have Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young books. So I'm looking into that part. What I find is funny is everybody, like I said, talks about how humble he was, didn't want this drama. That's just a strange coincidence. But that's just the number one thing you take from the video. The number two thing, or at least for me, is Mitch absolutely knows deer, and he knows big deer, and this was back in 1995, and he knew some great stuff. He was way ahead of his time, and you could tell that the dude is crazy about whitetails, absolutely loves them. He's obsessed. He's like with many guys we talked to today, just ate up with it. And without a doubt, you could tell from the video, Mitch knew a thing or two about deer movement, deer patterns. And that stuff wasn't as easy available as it is today. With the internet, Facebook, the community of hunters on social media, you get to learn a lot. He didn't have that. So obviously that tells me Mitch had hunted quite a bit to learn what he had learned. And like in the video I said, he had multiple deer that were giants. I mean, he had a 180-inch typical, and then shot one that was slightly bigger than that in the 180s as a typical. So just, absolutely insane that this guy was killing deer like that back then. But to go along with that, could that be done back then? If you're a hardcore bow hunter, if you had the information and knowledge of today, well, if you back it up to the 90s, absolutely, I think so. There was way less bow hunting pressure back then. Bow hunting has really exploded here around 2000 and up, and Mitch was ahead of the curve. So you're getting to do that pre-bow hunting explosion or the resurgence of bow hunting near the millennium. So that means to me there obviously could be some deer that had upper end age, and we all know that you have to have age to grow big antlers. Oh, and by the way, that video I'm talking about is actually out on YouTube, so if you guys type in Mitch Rompola, you could probably find that video. It's around roughly 7 to 8 minutes long. But if you have questions about Mitch or the integrity even of what I'm saying about him knowing deer, you can watch the video and you'll know right away that the guy's legit. But just type in his name in the YouTube search, you'll be able to find it. So once you see the video, you'll be able to tell Mitch had killed several caliber trophy class whitetails in his life, dating all the way back to like 1958, I believe, when he was just shy of 10 years old. So I just wanted to paint somewhat a picture of at least his credibility. I'm not pro Mitch, I'm not con Mitch. I don't know what to believe. I just know there's questions, and I have questions that I'm going to talk about here in just a second. So Mitch's buck, like I said, was arrowed on November 13th, 1998. So this deer, just to give you an idea, roughly it had a net typical score of 218 and 5/8, had an outside spread of 38 inches. And with a score like that, that would beat the still current world record typical by 5 inches of Milo Hansen. Now this is some of the urban legend stuff. I don't know if it's true or not. I've heard guys talk really bad about Milo, but apparently Milo had pressured him with all kinds of lawsuits because he was claiming calling it a world record deer, when obviously by the books, Milo has entered in the books, I should say. So I don't know if it's true or not. I don't know if guys call Milo a dick. I don't know if it's true or not, but he had threatened, maybe sent legal paperwork to Mitch, trying to discredit him, defame him, and stop using the world record or world records. Excuse me. So that just draws to this kind of story and this controversy. It just is so insane. So Milo had hunted this deer for 3 years prior to killing it. Also stated he actually missed the deer a week before he actually shot the deer. Supposedly he knew it was a really good shot. Like I said, elected to go home, get the video camera, proceed to the recovery, and this is that footage is on YouTube as well, separate from the 7-minute interview that I had talked about with you guys earlier. So to me, this is when the story really takes a weird turn. The video is really short and sweet. He walks up to the deer. The deer's laying there. You can't really see anything. What I find odd is zero blood. You don't see any blood anywhere. So I don't know. That's not a pro or a con. I'm just, again, makes you wonder. So we also know at some point in this story, the buck was, sort of called a hoax. But I don't know who investigated the buck. That's nowhere on the internet. No one can find any legitimate sources of it, anybody deeming this was a joke or a hoax or fake. Another thing that is really weird in the picture and in the video, and there had been previously 4 or 5 great bucks that Mitch had shot that resembled this deer almost to a T. 24, 25, 28 inches wide, at least 3 or 4 of the pictures I saw. The same brow tines really far apart, 3 or 4 inches tall. And like I said, you don't usually see deer in an area and shoot them year after year that genetically, to me anyways, that look the same. Maybe a 120 to 30 inch 8-pointer, but not 160, 70, 80 inch deer that are right around 30 inches wide. So that part's a little weird to me. Another part that's really weird to me too is in every picture you look at where these multiple deer the racks look alike, 3 out of the 4 pictures, they all have floppy ears. So this is really weird. Like, why are both ears almost like they're broke, pointed down? They're not up, they're down. That's really bizarre. I don't know what could cause that, droopy ears, or, obviously I don't know either. Is that some sort of genetic thing? That would just be, again, another thing that I question. How can you shoot 4 or 5 deer in the past couple of years that all look the same, near 30-inch racks with droopy ears? That just sounds totally crazy to me. Now, there was also, questions about the video footage where the deer laid, blood in the pictures versus where the arrowhead looked like it was hit in the video. Like, obviously that stuff is speculation, but it is added to the draw and the urban legend of this Rompola buck as well. And still to this day, I don't know what it is, but part of me wants to believe it, and part of me wants to absolutely doubt it. Another notable thing, it could be rumor or not, but somebody somewhere here in Michigan had offered him $10,000 to go take an x-ray of the skull, the rack, all that stuff to prove that it was legitimate, that nothing was, taxidermy-wise or shed antlers were put onto the skull plate or sewn together somehow, which a lot of people theorize that causes the droopy ears. Supposedly, and it can't be proven from what I read, that this gentleman did offer Mitch $10,000 and Mitch had actually turned that down. So that's another thing to really speculate. Why would you turn that down? Why would you turn the money down? And I don't know anybody that couldn't use $10K and you get $10K and prove the naysayers wrong. So it makes me wonder, makes me question again, what is Mitch doing here? I don't really know. So when I asked that question, people always said, Mitch was so humble, he was so kind. A lot of the same stuff, I get it. He was that guy, it seemed like, especially in the video. But Mitch knew of these deer, like I stated in the beginning of this podcast. He knew of these records he had broke in Missouri. Something mattered to him. Some of these records did matter to Mitch. So again, it's a huge question mark on this deer that you would turn down that kind of money. Not about the money, I get it to some people, but you were into records. You can't tell me you weren't. If you watch the beginning of that 7-minute video, he talks about it multiple times. So when you add up these facts together, it's just kind of accumulated that a lot of people deemed it, like I said, a hoax or fake. And along with the fact that Rompola just practically disappeared without finding any of these allegations, he just was not going to point the finger back. He didn't yell scam. He just totally disappeared. Now, I have reached out to some people. I didn't get a lot of feedback. It seems like, especially the Michiganders I know, it seems like we're all very willing to claim sake to this deer, world record typical, but nobody wants to talk about it, which I found very interesting as well. And another interesting thing is not one Boone and Crockett typical prior to 1998 had ever come out of the county. I did some research on that. Never came out of the county that Mitch had shot this deer out of. So that's sort of a negative in my mind as well. But like I said, on the pro side, Mitch knew deer. He was an avid big buck hunter, and he was doing it before the big boom in the archery bow hunting explosion, like I said. So to me, possibly less pressure, upper end deer, upper end age, I mean, when I say that, it could be done for sure. The rest of the stuff ultimately makes me question everything. But it's impossible, at this point to really make any kind of judgment for myself. It's so vague. So many people are so opinionated. I can't call one side or the other. I just find the story extremely interesting. I have since 1998. When I first saw that picture of him holding that deer, I would, at that time, was dreaming about shooting my first 1.5-year-old buck or my second one at that point. So the image of him holding that rack, which is all over Google. Like I said, if you Google Mitch Rompola, you'll find it. But that image, I remember to this day, being a young hunter and a young guy, how impressive it was, and how much it fired me up. And even to this day, when I see those pictures, it's the same feeling. It's pretty remarkable. So, but I would love to know why it hasn't been dove into more. I don't know if I can't seem to find any contact for Mitch. I don't even know if he's alive anymore. I mean, he was in his late 50s in the 90s, so I'm not even sure. Hopefully he is. Hopefully he's doing well. But I would love, like so many people probably, to sit down and give Mitch's side of the story and ultimately kind of give people some kind of conclusion to the greatest, most infamous buck, in my opinion, ever in the whitetail woods. And I know that it would be such a fascinating ending to the story to get a definite conclusion. So, but that's it, guys. Just wanted to share some of the stuff that had come up, and amazing story. Share some of it to you guys, maybe some of the younger hunters that have not heard about the Rompola buck and some of the great details and just crazy stuff that went on, from Milo, threatening to sue him, to another guy offering him $10,000 for an x-ray. So crazy stuff that goes on, and in like the floppy years, just so many stuff that adds so much legend to this story. But with that said, guys, I'll see you guys next week. Make sure to check us out, Outdoor Podcast Channel, podbros.com, and make sure you stop by, check out, and give some love to the sponsor of this show, Enforcer Ozone, the most portable ozone unit on the market today. It's literally, I've said it 100 times on the show, I think now, but probably my favorite product of the past several years. It's so easy to use. It is small and compact in every manner, which obviously we care about weight in our backpack and our totes and all that good stuff. And it's a top-notch, well-made product. So make sure you check out EnforcerOzone.com. And like I said, we'll see you guys next week.